the only commercial I ever got to sing on, and it was the Count saying, Chocula cereal is coming your way. How about a monster for breakfast today?
Yeah. No, thank you. Oh my God, I could die a happy man now. We are going to get to know the heroes of voice acting a lot better today. So I want to introduce them all coming up here. From Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where she played April O'Neil, Renae Jacobs. Let's bring up Renae. Come on.
Hi, everybody. Who's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan? Woo!
Turtle power, right?
Turtle power.
From breakfast cereal icons Count Chocula and Sonny the Cougar Bird to Lion-O in Thundercats and beyond, the great Larry Kenney.
Yay, Larry!
Hi, everybody.
It would be a Terrificon panel for me with voice actors without Larry Kenney. I think we've done several of these already, so good to have you back on. And from X-Men the Animated Series, he's Wolverine, Bob. Woo! The great Cal Dodd.
Yay, Cal!
He is Cal Dodd. We've got a lot of voices. My voice is kind of shot this weekend already, so thank God we've got voice actors on the panel here so they can just take everything over here. Look, I've had in-depth interviews with two of you over in Comic Book Central. I appreciate it. This is the first time I get to meet Renae, so this is I'm honored to be able to finally chat with you. I'm going to start. I want to get a little bit of background, and then everybody out there, I'm sure you got a lot of questions for all of them, for all of your animated series that you love. So there's a microphone right over here. So if you want to start thinking some of your questions, if you want to jump in line, if you want to get in line and ask some questions, we can do that, but we'll do that as we go through. I want to get a little bit of background on each one of you, though, too. Renae first, grew up in Michigan?
Yes, Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, so what was life like for you growing up? What kind of a kid were you, and what inspired you to want to get into voice acting, or just even acting in general, or was that initially a thought?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I was 6 years old, and my parents took me to see a play, actually a musical called Most Happy Fella. And after the show, I said to my mom, that's what I'm going to do. And, she took me seriously, which was lovely. So at the age of 6, she enrolled me in a class at Michigan State University. It was run by a woman who had a television show for children, and it was mainly with puppetry. And after that class, I think I was turned about 7 at the time, she said, Renae's really good, and I'd like to have her on my show. So at 7 years old, I started performing puppetry and doing voices on television at that age. And that was the beginning of what came full circle. To do voiceover.
Were you seeing things? Were you interested in like cartoons and animation? At what point did you get a sense of, there's like certain people doing these voices and they're making careers out of this?
I didn't have that sense. What happened was my parents we lived in Michigan, so we had a basement. In California, we don't have any basements. No basements. But we had a basement, and they set up kind of a playroom for me, and I had a record player with all of the collection of the Disney records that opened up. I don't know if any of you know, and the stories.
Mm-hmm. And book and record sets.
And listen to the records, and I just mimicked the voices. So I started copying all the voices from Disney and Alvin and the Chipmunks and you name it. And I didn't realize there were people behind it. I just copied what I was hearing.
What was the transition then? So you moved to LA, was it in like the early 80s?
No, I moved to Los Angeles when I was 9.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, oh my goodness, California, here we come.
Yeah, at 9.
At 9.
Okay.
Of course, I wanted to be an actor, which I was.
Yeah. So how did you start getting gigs at like that young, and then how did that change? Because I know at some point you appeared on game shows, I think.
Yeah.
You were doing like a lot of game shows and different things like that.
Yeah, well, like I said, it started with puppetry. And then when we moved to California, I got involved with children's theater, which continued with doing voices. And I did voices there's a theme park called Knott's Berry Farm. You familiar with that? So I did voices on the rides and for puppet shows there. I just kind of fell into these things. And then I actually really studied opera and musical comedy. And so that was really the direction I was going in. And when I finally came back to California after living in New York, my agent said, well, do you happen to do voices? I said, as a matter of fact, I do. So that's kind of the full circle. I ended up coming back to my roots, my beginnings.
Okay. I think it was My Little Pony. I wrote some of the Moon Dreamers. There was a Punky Brewster cartoon. I think you did voices on that too. Was it The Adventures of Don, Coyote, and Sancho Panda?
Yeah.
So all those different things, picking that up. Larry, let's get on to you a little bit. I know when we chatted, we talked about starting as a radio DJ, but like a really young radio DJ.
Not that young, not as young as Renae. I was 15. It was a couple of months before my 16th birthday when I was 15, and I'm from a small town in Illinois called Pekin, Illinois, near Peoria, if you know Peoria.
I know Peoria.
And I was lucky enough to get a job at the local radio station when I was 15. And for a while, I was mostly doing a Saturday afternoon show, playing records. I was a disc jockey, not a DJ. It's a different thing now. It's a disc jockey. We actually played the records on the radio.
Those small little vinyl
Brown
things that went round and round. Yeah, those things. Making a comeback, I think. I think they're making a comeback now.
They might, I think so. Everything else is.
Yeah.
So I started in radio, and I had always loved voices, imitating voices. From the time I was a small kid, I used to copy cartoon voices off TV. And
So similar, mimicking, just catching on to that. Okay.
Sure, and I found I had a talent for it. So when I got on the radio, I incorporated that into my radio show. I do little funny, hopefully funny skits, as different voices. And then I moved in radio from there up to Cleveland, and then Chicago, and then finally New York about 50 years ago.
And, 6 moves in 9 years, right?
Yeah,
I think you went to different...
No, not 6. Peoria to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then to Cleveland, Chicago, and New York. Yeah, five moves.
Okay, 5 in 9 years, yeah.
Yeah, by the time I got to New York, I was 25, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
But even at 15 coming in, do you remember what it was that, it's like, put this guy on the air. Let's get this guy on the air. Do you remember what you went in with, or do you how you...
Well, I had been taking a radio class in high school. Now, this is 1963 in a small town in Illinois, and looking back on it now, it's incredible that we had a radio studio with state-of-the-art equipment. We didn't have a transmitter, so what we did was broadcast a 10-minute show at lunchtime every day over the local radio station via telephone lines, And so I had done that for 2 semesters, and then one day at the end of the semester, the program director from WIRL, which was the big station in our area, 5,000 watts, and he came into our class. Our teacher asked him to come in. He was looking for somebody to take over this weekend shift. And they usually use high school kids. In fact, the first show I did for a year was called School Scope, where another guy and I had a 2-hour show where we would talk about the local goings-on at the high schools, football scores, things like that. And so they needed a new guy for that. So he came into our class, and apparently he had asked our teacher, is any one of these people that you think, would... And so apparently he told me and another guy, told him about me and another guy, thought we were very good. So the guy invited us up the next day to Peoria to audition. It was a Saturday at noon. So I went in and did my audition. I think I read some news.
Some news copy. They just had
news copy, and I think I maybe played a couple of records and did a little patter as a disc jockey, Hey, you count down the stacks of hits, And then when I came out, the guy said, you got the job. And I said, great, when do I start? He said, 4 o'clock. Which was great because it didn't give me a chance to get scared as hell,
Yeah, you didn't have a chance to be nervous about it. It's just like you're just going into overdrive right then. Yeah, 0 to 60.
Yeah, that's how I started.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Cal, you were born in a land far, far away from here, correct?
Many moons from here.
Yeah. Tell the folks where you're originally from.
Pardon?
Tell the folks where you're originally from, where you're born.
Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah, great city.
5 in the family. Fiona was the oldest. Myself, she was born in the north of Ireland. I was born in Dublin. So was Barry, and Rory and Sean were born when we came over to this The other country, Canada.
The other, yes, north of the Great Way, north a little bit. Do you ever get back to Dublin at all?
I beg your pardon?
Do you ever get back to Dublin at all?
You go back to Dublin?
To Ireland?
No, the last time I was there was with my mom. She's no longer with us, but in '89.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And met relatives I had never met before in my life, and it was just wonderful to do that.
When did you move to Toronto? About what age?
When did I move to Toronto?
About what age were you?
22 or something like that, 21 or 22.
Okay.
Yeah, 21.
So just even growing up in Ireland and then what kind of kid were you growing up? Like, obviously you've now all inhabited these iconic characters too, but like just as a kid, were you gravitating towards some of those things? Or I know there's a lot of music in your background too, so.
Everything was music. That's all that mattered to the entire family, an Irish family. And we toured as a family. Mom would play the piano, and the four of us, because Sean was born blind and deaf, my last little brother. And so there were four of us that would sing and go around to different functions, whether Conservative Party or Liberal Party. We would change the name and tell you, the song is, if you're Irish, come into the parlor. If you're Liberal, come into the parlor. And then run across the street to the Conservative people. If you're Conservatives. and
nobody caught on to that.
And if we were at the supper table ordering, like, can you pass the butter? Like, there was never everybody, please. It was like, butter, and then automatically it would go into 4-part harmony. Butter, 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 butter. That, it was, so the whole life was.
Wait a minute, did this transition into part of Larry's, wasn't there, was it Parquet? Were you doing the Parquet margarine commercials too?
No.
Okay.
But he'd like to have.
Okay. I was thinking it was the Parquet.
Are they paying?
Yeah.
Are they looking?
So going into Toronto, okay, so then talk a little bit about the variety show that you were into. Was it Circus, the variety show Circus?
Circus? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Leslie Nielsen did the pilot with us.
Okay.
He was like the, what do you call them, the ringmaster.
Right.
And there was a girl, it was actually copied and styled after Donnie and Marie show. The girl looked just like Marie. I was Donnie Osmond. And we went to Vegas to sell the show to Viacom, who ended up buying it, and met Donnie Osmond and Marie Osmond. It was kind of cute. And that was from 78 to 83, 83, 5 years.
And you're also in a band before that, too, like Deja Vu?
Pardon?
Deja Vu, the band?
Yeah, we toured with Joe Cocker. I was just telling you that.
Wow.
And it was to replace Three Dog Night, folded in the U.S., and they were a big popular group. And so they found 3 singers in Canada, 3 of us, and I put the band together, and we rehearsed underground for like 8-10 months, and then went to New York, recorded the album, and toured with Joe Cocker, and I got tired of it after 2 years, because I was working very hard I was like the guy in Canada for singing jingles, like, commercials.
Right.
For beer, bras, cereals, whatever, and they'd fly me to New York and Chicago to do different commercials. And so they were paying us nothing on this record, and plus screaming where you shouldn't be singing from rock and roll. So I passed and just left the group.
So plus the traveling, and it was like the money was better with the commercials and everything like that at point. So how did that segue into voice acting? Like, how did you transition?
I never expected ever to be doing voiceover, except we were always peed off because voiceovers got paid double scale automatically. Or at least 1.5. Singers, never. Singers were always just scale, and we didn't have agents.
Right.
There was no agents for singers, but voiceover people did. So they got like at least 1.5, so pay their agent their 15%, whatever. And I got a call because they did a commercial for Chrysler, and the voice that they wanted me to, for some reason, they was like, it's a talk sing. It was like, who's got all the 4x4s? And on the other group singers singing, Chrysler's got the 4x4s, sound up. I would do that. So someone to remember that and said, would you be interested in auditioning for this voice thing for Project X? The X-Men. So we all went to this audition, all of us, and every one of the voices are Canadian on the X-Men series.
Okay. And before that, Jim Henson, too, working with Jim Henson, right, on Fraggle Rock?
I did Fraggle Rock with Jim Henson for 5 years.
You're doing, like, a lot of the songs.
And the singing.
Yeah.
Like, myself and Sharon Lee helped the entire cast on whenever the songs, cast had to sing a song, we would bolster it and, like, make it sound great and stuff. And then I played what the hell is the name of this? Sorry. Not a doozer. I was one of the doozers for a minute.
To this day, I still can't believe Wolverine is doozing.
And I also did because God bless him, Henson came in for a couple of times, a couple of the tapings, because they were in Toronto. Wow. And interesting watching the way they filmed that show, because they're talking about puppetry and stuff, and they're underneath, standing up, but they built this intricate, the whole set on top of them. And so I said, I do a good Kermit. He's the voice of Kermit for that. And he says, really? I said, yeah. So I immediately went into, why are there always songs about rainbows? And he just went, oh, you do? Yes, yes, you do. So, and I never thought about doing voices, and so I auditioned for X-Men and got it. Yeah.
Wow. I always ask actors that have worked with Muppets too. It's like, do you fall into that trap sometimes where you see the performer, but then all of a sudden, like the next thing you know, you're talking to the Muppet, or were you interacting?
It's how quickly you forget. No, I react.
Because they're that good.
Because they did Mr. Dress-Up, and Mr. Dress-Up had Muppets and puppets too. And I just look at, that's all I would look at. I wouldn't think about the hand underneath it at all, because they're so real.
Yeah. And then you're interacting with us, having this conversation too. So well, that's
they asked me, and the people, because they were all from LA and New York, in the casting session in Toronto, and they said, so I said, we didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was at all.
Yeah.
Not an inkling. And so they showed me a picture of him and said, he's 5'3", he's built like a brick poop house, and he just loves, he's got a big heart, and he never leaves, always backs up his friends. So they gave me this line, and I looked at the line, and my name's Wolverine, so the character that I'm going to be speaking this line to is named Sabretooth. And I, again, don't know what the hell they're talking about.
So you had any experience with the comics?
Because I asked him, I said, who's this? Because when I read the line, I said, holy crap, this is pretty violent.
Yes.
And he said, well, it's Sabretooth. And I honestly, I said, is this an animal cartoon? And they just laughed when they stopped laughing. An animal cartoon? He said, Wolverine, Sabretooth, they're beasts, they're animals. No, Cal, no. This is the line they gave me.
All right, you egg-sucking piece of gutter trash. You always did like picking on people shorter than you. Well, I'm shorter. Try picking on me.
And they were behind the glass, and they just went,
holy shit.
and they just fed me a bunch more lines, and I went home, and I got that wonderful call, we'd like you to be our Wolverine. I'm like, jeez, okay. Wow. I'll have to check my calendar.
Did you start buying comic books at that point, and just going through comic books and learning about the characters?
And my wife did. She went, when I got home, she had like 2 comic books for me to read.
Yeah. We got a microphone. If you guys have any questions for any of our voice actors, please just jump on, and we'll talk about that. But let's get to some of these iconic characters too. So, okay, Renae, I know with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so that's a great audition for Wolverine, and you got the gig. Yours may not have gone as smoothly for the audition.
Oh, so you maybe have heard.
I'm not sure. It's like, I don't know if it was a slam. It wasn't a slam dunk, was it?
Well, I learned later it wasn't a slam dunk.
Okay.
So, those were back in the days where you went into a studio and everybody you knew was sitting in the waiting room waiting to go in and do their audition. And they gave us a line drawing of April O'Neil. It wasn't color, just a pencil drawing. And the description was, she's in her 20s, she's a reporter, and she's friends with the Turtles. Now, you have to know that none of us really knew what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was. In fact, we couldn't even say it because it was too long. And Stu Rosen was the original director on TMNT, and he had shown the guys, and all the guys he knew, the comic books, but he never showed me. So I had no idea what this was about. But everybody in town went in to audition for it, and Stu, personally, on a one-to-one level, he was a great guy, a really good friend. Business-wise, he could be really mean. He smoked, and he always had a cigarette, and in those days you could smoke in the studio. And he'd say, well, do what you can. I'm like, okay. So I read for April. I did her, and she seemed like me. Okay, she was kind of spunky, she was professional. There weren't that many real people that I played back then. It was always little characters and we're close friends and everywhere we go, things like that. So this was the first time I got to actually kind of play me. So I did me. And I got a call from my agent, and he said, "You got April O'Neil on the Teenage Mutant something." And I said, "Okay." So I show up to the first recording, and we're all in the studio, and they hadn't assigned who was going to do what for the Turtles. So at one point, Cam Clark was either going to be Leonardo or Michelangelo, and Townsend was going to be either one. So they said, first time around, Townsend, you do Michelangelo. Second time around, you'll do Leonardo. We'll rehearse it. And they never switched. Poor Cam. He had to be the straight guy. So anyway, we go through the first rehearsal, in the middle, and you take a break, and then you lay down the tracks. And in between, right, and what you learn later is, you look at a Rob Paulson or any of these amazing voiceover actors, and you think, oh, they've got it all going on, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And you're really insecure. And then later you find out when you're on these panels, we were all really insecure.
It's the actor's curse, right?
Scared. Yeah. And, they can always replace you, right? Yeah. So in between the rehearsal and the recording, Stu comes up to me and he goes, "Well, I really didn't want you as April." I'm like, oh, geez. He says, "And I played all 200 auditions of all the women in town, and every time they said, 'That's not April, that's not April.' And so I said, 'Well, I have one more, but I played you,' and they said, 'That's April.'" Like, oh my God! So I'm back in the studio shaking in my boots. So that's how I got April. I mean, you don't know what's what. And maybe if he had played me at the beginning, I wouldn't have gotten it.
Right.
Maybe they just had to hear everybody, and finally they didn't hear what they wanted, and they settled for me. I don't know.
Or it's not all this thing is like, I don't know what I want, but I'll know when I hear it. And then all of a sudden it's like, you just came at the perfect time too. Did you ever kind of break his chops about that? Or it was like, thanks, Stu,
as I said,
way to give me confidence.
No, you're like, you're every time you're in the studio, you're scared, In fact, it was an interesting experience. Now we're all really good friends. But in the studio, it was always a little precarious. And at one point, they came up to us and they said, you can be replaced. So you are not allowed to miss the recordings. Wow. So there were times when, you might have another job and it conflicted. And you couldn't take that other job, or you had to beg them to record you separately because they told you could be replaced.
Right.
And they did it to Rob for a bit.
In an animation, it's easy to do that. Well, you got, 10 seasons, 193 episodes?
Yep.
So, I think you got the last lap.
I didn't miss one.
No, you didn't. We got some questions. Yeah, we'll go, and then we'll talk about the other characters as we go. But, have at. And what's your name?
Hi, my name is Gerald from New York.
Hey.
I'm a big fan of all of you guys.
Thank you.
It started off with Thundercats, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it just ended with Wolverine and the X-Men. And just want to say, if this goes out to Lionel, what was your favorite episode of Thundercats?
Gosh. We did 130 of them. I like 211 was good. No,
That's the wrong one. No, that's not it. One.
Honestly, though, the first few were the most fun for me.
Right.
Because it was the first animated series I'd ever done. I had already been Count Chocula and Sonny the Cocoa Puffs bird for years at that point, and I continued to be for 40 years. And so the thing about the first few episodes was that Lion-O, my character, if you're familiar with the Thundercats, he was a young boy, 7, 8, 9 years old, I don't know. So they thought about having a kid do those first few episodes, But our director, Lee Donaker, said, "Larry, why don't you give it a shot?" I said, "Okay." Well, and first of all, the Thundercats themselves, they told us, we don't want any cartoon voices. They're half human, half lion, half cat. So no cartoon
So of
voices.
course they're human.
Okay, I gotta go.
They wanted to sound, so use your own voice. So I said, okay, well, I want to audition for that, or try for that. I'd already won the Lion-O audition, but now Lion-O is 7, 8 years old. So can you sound like that? And I thought, well, gosh, the only thing I can do is try to remember when I was 7 or 8 or 9 years old, And my first thought was scared to death all the time, kid is. In fact, in the show, Lion-O was constantly saying to Snarf, the little thing, gee, Snarf, I don't know if I can do this job. I don't know if I can be Lord of the Thundercats, And so they said they liked that because it wasn't that different from my regular voice. So that was, I guess, the first couple episodes were the best.
Okay, cool. Last question is to Cal. Who would you say is an equal, somebody who would be the opposite of you in the Marvel world? Would it be Sabretooth or like Omega Red?
Or who? Or Omega Red?
Omega Red.
Which one is the...
He's the Soviet with the ponytail. He fought you.
No, I know who he is, but...
Like, who would be the best opponent?
Opponent?
Yeah.
Well, Sabretooth was just a pain in the butt.
No, he was just always coming back for more.
Okay.
And they were always, and I never know who really won any of their fights. If there was any, I've told you that story when one of the fights, Sabretooth to throw him over and he lands in the ocean and he's hugging onto a floating piece of ice.
Right.
And Sabretooth will not stop yelling down at him. It's like,
Here lies Wolverine. You're going to die down there.
and Wolverine, of course, in his inimitable, funny fashion says, and he's holding on to this thing, he shuts up and says,
At least I won't have to listen to your flapping mouth anymore.
So Omega Red, probably. And Logan, how you doing? What have you done to your face?
Okay, next question. And your name?
Hi, my name is Ellen, and I'm from West Hartford, Connecticut. My question is for Cal. We know that you're the OG voice for Wolverine in the cartoons, but my question is, what are your opinions on the other actors that have done their part as Wolverine over the years, both cartoon and live action?
What? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Sorry. I mean,
Me either.
what are your thoughts and opinions of the other actors that have also
Yellow
portrayed
actor,
Wolverine?
Yeah.
What is your...
Oh, what do you think of the other actors that played Wolverine? Like, so either in animation or Hugh Jackman, or what do you think of their characteristics and how they approach the character, as opposed to like maybe how you approach?
Well, Hugh was, fantastic. But when I first saw because it was fresh to me, and I met him. He was in town to shoot the first movie in the year 2000 in Toronto, out here in Toronto, and they met at a wine and cheese thing, which I love. Wine and cheese. I can't stand either one of them. And Hugh was there, and he's with that accent of his. And they said, we'd like the two Wolverines to meet. Hugh Jackman, this is Cal Dodd, our Wolverine for 5 years, and the only voice that anyone had ever heard of that Wolverine ever had was mine in the series. So the people that are going to be going to this movie, they said the producers and directors going, they might want to hear that sound or something like that. So he was forced to listen. He's a grinder for working. And the way he works out to get ready for Wolverine roles is infamous. And so anyway, he took on that, listening to my voice. So he says to me, I said, pleasure to meet you. No, that's what he said. I said, nice to meet you, Hugh. And he said, a pleasure to meet you too, mate, but I'm sick and tired of listening to your voice. And he did, and I said, thank you, I think. And so we went on talking for a while, and as he said, okay, well, pleasure to meet you again. And I said, yep, okay. And he turned around and walked away, and I did, in Wolverine's voice, I said, hey, Hugh. She said, yes, yep. Don't screw this up. And he just laughed and laughed. So Hugh would be definitely, I don't know of anyone else to do it after what he's done. He set the bar pretty high. But when I first watched the first episode, I wanted to take 1.5 feet off his height. It didn't make any sense, and I couldn't watch after 5 minutes. I went, no, that's not. I don't know that person.
But I think you both set the bar pretty high. I mean, I think that's it. I think when you think of those characteristics, you think of you think of Hugh, and I think it's just inseparable at this point. So it's very cool that you got to meet up. That's just fantastic that you guys got to meet up. So thanks for the question. I appreciate it.
Also, I do have another question for Larry. What do you think is easier, doing voice acting for TV shows or commercials?
Which do I think is better, best,
or easier?
Easier. Well, I really can't answer that question. It depends on the project. It depends on what kind of voice you're doing. Some voices are pretty hard to do to maintain, like we were talking about, throughout an episode, let alone, I guess I never really had much problem with my throat. I don't have any thing I go through to, like that. Just whatever comes out. But for me, I was doing a television show on VH1. Remember VH1? Mm-hmm. It was called Best Week Ever. Mm-hmm. You ever hear that? And I had to scream through the whole thing. Oof. It's the 2nd day of August, 1958. The best week ever! Ouch. For an hour. Wow. And by the end of that day, I was kind of blown out, I still use that voice on, the Skittles commercials? Mm-hmm. I'm the guy at the end that says, feel the rainbow, taste the rainbow.
Oh, my God. I didn't even know it was you.
I think the late, great Kevin Conroy, he mentioned those that were called throat rippers. They would always try to save the throat rippers for the end of the day, so that he would just get there, and then anytime he had to do Batman that was like in these video games, it would just be like, oh, I'm done. That's it. So the fact that you're still pulling that off, that's fantastic. So good. Thanks. Next question.
Thank you, dear.
Oh my God.
Hi.
No.
No.
No, I can't.
That'll be a no.
My name's Clay, and I'm from Central Vermont. My question's for all of you. If a portal to the imagination was right here, right now, and
can you raise the microphone, or because I'm sorry, I can't.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
if a portal to the imagination was right here, right now, and Wolverine, Lionel, and April O'Neil walked out of that portal, what would you say to them?
Oh, if you've met your own characters,
Yep.
if you as the actor got to meet your own character, what would you say? Like, what would you say to April? What would you say to Lionel? And what would you say to Wolverine? Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Wow. It's a deep cut.
I would say thank you. Thank you on a multitude of levels. Thank you for allowing me to portray that character and come into the lives of so many. And strangely enough, having such an effect, changing the lives of so many, touching the lives of so many. When I say we, I mean our cast is grateful. I would say I would just be so appreciative of her and her character and her strength, and to lead an example of how to be a great human being and being friends to turtles and not thinking it's strange. So that's what I would just thank her and invite her for a cup of coffee. Yeah.
Great.
Larry, what would you say to
Mine
Lionel?
is very similar. If I met Lionel,
Yeah.
I would say, I think I owe you a beer. Or two.
Or two, maybe two. Cal, what would you say to Wolverine?
I would say we need to go drink for a long time because you have a lot of problems.
Number one, the girl problem you have. Why can't you keep a girlfriend of any sort? You're just always screwing it up with them. But and you got to get over this lonesome thing, because people really want to love you, and he has a huge heart, Wolverine, but he doesn't let anyone in. And when they try, he doesn't trust them. But those wonderful scenes in the series where he's up north with the Eskimos is the only time he's at peace. And he says that to the chief, who says, the people are very happy, and it's all because of you. And he says, I just feel strange. It just doesn't feel right. I feel
at peace. There you go, buddy. Have another beer. Bring it over for him now, quick. He's a doll.
No.
By the way, that would be the best pub crawl ever. To be with like Lion-O and Wolverine and you guys, that would be fantastic. I would get in on that pub crawl any day of the week. So thanks for the question. Hello.
Hello. My name is Damon. I am from Connecticut, New Haven. Good pizza.
So I've heard.
My question's for Cal. The X-Men animated series in the 90s introduced so many people my age and younger to the X-Men and Marvel, and it's been so successful that they're revisiting it, which is fantastic. And my question for you is, what do you think makes Wolverine Wolverine?
I'll get that.
Me. Me. He didn't have any voice before. It's like, and I have this. I do these cameo things, and I have this a big doll of him, not doll, but it's a cardboard cutout of Wolverine, and I talk to him all the time, and he's right. It's a big thing, and he's right behind me, and so in the middle of this cameo, going like, "Excuse me," he's whispering to me again because you see, you can't talk without me. And I turn around, of course, I do throw my voice, whatever, just like, so, are you okay back there? Yeah, shut up, turtle. And go back. See, he's not happy again. So, I forget the question now.
Oh, you got it. No, you
answered
nailed
it.
it. Oh, yeah, you nailed it.
Pretty much.
You nailed it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another question?
Yeah, that's good. I'm Wally. I'm from New York. I've been to this, actually, I'm my fourth year coming to this. I got one for each. For you, what's your opinion on, for argument's sake, the other versions of April from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Oh, wow. All the versions, live action and animated.
All of them.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Which ones have you met? I think,
Hey, Smarty Pants.
My opinion is I'm the only April. But
can't use the shoe knife.
I
Here, I have witnesses.
appreciate all of the women who've played April. I think they've done a pretty darn good job. Strength of character, tough, not frightened. I think, and each iteration just brings a new generation of people who love turtles, which brings it back to the original, the best April O'Neil.
Nice.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And did you get to...
Can we? I'm sorry. But
Oh, no.
Can we have a nice hand for my granddaughter, please?
That's your granddaughter.
She's 2.
Oh, was she trying to come up to
You heard me. See, Brian and I just said, we got a runner.
Her name is Ophelia, and we call her Opal.
This is the next gen of animation fans, right? So
And that's her mommy, Katie.
She was raised with.
do you do voices
That's her
as
daddy,
Grandpa?
Tanner, right over there.
Does Grandpa do voices? Does he do? Does he bring the like Count Chocula out every now and again, or on
mean
command?
Yes.
Yeah, you. Yeah.
I'm not used to being called Grandpa, although I've got 5 of them.
When you're eating a bowl of cereal, do you kind of sneak one
I
of
know
those
what you're
in?
asking, and I always tell people that people usually ask, your kids must have loved it. The guy does the voices on TV. Nothing can be further from the truth. Now my dad's lying.
Yeah.
But back then, for example, I used to love to read to the kids at bedtime. And they're all 3 were the same. I have a daughter who's 53 now, and a son who's 35, and a daughter who's 39. And with each of them, I would read them bedtime stories. And I would begin by going, if I were reading something like, and the evil witch said, and the kids invariably would go, Dad, just read the story. What's with the funny voices and stuff like that? So, no, they were never...
They had no idea how good they had it, because, I mean, we, as fans, we would think that would...
Yeah.
Oh my God, that would be the best thing ever to have a professional voice artist.
You're never a star to your children.
I know,
That's right.
I get it.
So that's
the way it should be.
That's funny. So as voiceover actors, we're usually creating voices wherever we go. We steal them, we sit and listen, and we put them together, and we make these voices. So the best place to practice is in the car, right? So I'm practicing my voices in the car. My little 2-year-old, Arielle, is in the back seat of the car, and she's really quiet. And I got a little I'm doing my voices. I forgot she's in the back. And this little thing in the back says, "Mommy, stop making the voices." I said, "Ariel, people pay me to do these voices." She got real quiet and she said, "No one's paying you now."
Whoa. Wow.
My daughter is a deputy district attorney now. Don't mess with her.
Children, bringing blunt
Put
honesty.
you through college. That's didn't when you got the role? Weren't you didn't you just find out you were pregnant?
Actually, we did the first 5-part miniseries in 1987.
Right.
And then it showed at Christmas time to sell toys, right? That's what these shows were about. They were about selling toys.
Right.
So April 7th, 1988, I'm in the hospital. I've just had this little baby girl. My agent calls me and says, "Congratulations on the baby." I said, "Oh, thank you so much. And Ninja Turtles has gone to series." So I'll never forget the date. I'll never forget the
And you'll never let your daughter forget the date.
Yeah.
Either. So thank you for the question. We appreciate it, too.
Hey, 2 more.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
One, as a teacher, I gotta say, children are very just blunt honest, but they're cute about it. 2, if you had Logan's abilities, what's the most dangerous thing you would do right now? Would you think if you had Wolverine's healing factor? The deadliest thing you would do, like right now, anything.
If I had Logan's what?
If you had his
Powers.
abilities, what would be the
healing
most
factor.
dangerous thing you would do? I don't know. You probably wouldn't do anything dangerous, would you? You seem like a pleasant enough chap. I don't know. Or do you have a dark side?
Dangerous thing he would do.
Yeah. Or what would you do with his powers?
Better yet, what would you do with his powers?
Yeah.
I don't know, probably try and kill Magneto,
Good point.
because I don't like him.
Fair enough. I'll take a jump from the stratosphere. Hey, you have a healing factor. Use it.
There you go. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Dan. I'm actually from Northampton, Massachusetts. My question is for Renae. Did you ever get to meet Kevin Eastman or Peter Laird?
Oh, absolutely. So Kevin and Peter would come to the studio at the beginning of the season, and every season they would say, "We want you to make it darker. No more of this funny stuff, okay? No more of the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers, and stop throwing the sand around. It needs to be dark." And so they would be in the studio for a couple of the episodes, and then they'd like what they heard, and so they'd leave, and then we'd start throwing the sand around and being the Three Stooges again. So if you ever listen to the beginning of each season, it's a darker sound. But then as it goes on, a few episodes later, it goes into that funny stuff and the ad-libbing that they did keep in the show. So yes, we met them. But they really stayed in the booth. They didn't really come into where we were recording, but you could see what they were doing. Oh my God, what are these kids doing? It needs to be dark. So we didn't do dark.
And eventually got it. So
Yeah.
they eventually got it too.
Yeah.
So that was thank you for the question.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Matt. I'm from New York, and this is for everyone, for all of you who have already met and will hopefully soon meet. Thank you very much for everything. My inner child has been jumping off the walls the last few times I've been here, especially today.
That's nice.
There are some people who have been voices of my childhood since I was a kid, and I have met just about all but one. Peter Cullen, next week.
Yes.
Then my inner child will be completely thrilled. But thank you for Ninja Turtles, for Thundercats, for the most pissed off Canadian not named Wade Wilson. Thank you very much for all of them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You gotta love getting that at these conventions too, right? Because when you're in the booth, you don't always get you're so isolated. I mean, I know you're with other actors, but when you get to come out and just hear how things have impacted people, that's just gotta be.
Exactly what.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry. Exactly what he said. I'm sure you guys feel the same way.
Yeah.
When somebody comes up and looks at your pictures and says, "This is my childhood."
Yeah.
You know, that means a lot to me.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a
Excuse
question?
me.
Yeah.
My name is Wyckoff. I have a question for Cal Dodd, please.
Okay, I'll get him.
Okay. How did you get the voice of Wolverine anyway?
How did you originally get the part?
How'd you get the voice, the job?
Yeah, how did you get the gig?
Well, I asked them when I was auditioning, I said, so who do you hear him speak? They showed me a picture of him. And I said, cute, 5'3", the colors on and stuff. And I said, who do you hear him sounding? And of course they said, what's his name? He's 93 now. Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, yeah.
Clint Eastwood. This is 30 years ago, by the way.
Yeah.
So they said Clint Eastwood, and I went, yeah. And again, I'm looking at the first line that they're giving me, and Clint would never, I can't even hear him saying that in his quiet voice. So like, go ahead, make my day. That ain't Wolverine. So I put that in the back of my head, and then they said, the other references were Steve McQueen. And I went, well, I love that reference because he's one of my favorite actors, and he's very quiet and very introverted into himself and very quiet, which like Wolverine is very quiet and off. And Ward Bond, and I don't know what Ward Bond, and Robert Mitchum, and I went, geez, thanks very much, that really helps.
Wow.
And I put those all in my head, and I came up with the guy from, have you ever heard of Wolfman Jack?
Yeah.
The voiceover guy?
Hey,
you cool Wolfman Jack.
Wolfman Jack, baby. No, Wolfman Jack, baby. And so put that bit of it, that stuff. The Midnight Special, that into Wolverine with Clint Eastwood, and hence that what came out like, all right, you egg-sucking piece of gutter trash.
Wow.
That's where it came from.
Thank you for the question. Thank you.
You can't miss.
Go ahead, make my day.
You can't miss Wolfman Jack's voice. I was walking down the street in New York one time, and I had known Wolfman for a couple of years. Hadn't seen him because he was in L.A. and I was in New York. Walking down the middle of 6th Avenue, or not in the middle of the street, and this limousine pulls up and the window goes and I hear, Larry, baby! Hey! Come and see the Wolfman!
Nice.
I got in, we had a good time.
Oh my God.
We had a real good time.
You have a question?
Oh yes. My name's Daryl Fleming, and I have a question for Mr. Kenney.
Yes.
I know your Lionel voice tends to be the most. It's the most iconic, but would you have a second role that's iconic besides Lionel?
Did I do a second role on the show?
I meant not just in Thundercats, but anything. But in any cartoon or whatever.
Do you have a number 2 behind Lionel?
You have a favorite.
Second favorite behind Lionel?
A character?
Yeah.
On the show?
Oh, any show.
Any show that I played?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I played Bluegrass on Silverhawks. He was kind of a cool guy. Cowboy. Shazam? Nobody? Oh, gosh. It was fun playing Count Chocula for 40 years at Sonny.
Can you do him?
Sonny?
Can you do Chocula for me?
I once, certainly.
Because
if she didn't ask, I would have. Yeah.
It's the only commercial I ever got to sing on, and it was the Count saying, Count Chocula cereal is coming your way. How about a monster for breakfast today?
No, thank you. Oh my God, I could die a happy man now. That is just you raised so many of us. Granted, on sugary breakfast cereals,
I'm sorry about that.
Outside of that was still cool. Thank you for the question. So we have another question there, and then we'll probably wrap things up here pretty soon.
Sorry, I'm short like Wolverine, sorry.
No.
Hi, my name is Stefania. I'm from Connecticut. I'm a huge fan of the X-Men, as you can see. Every time I read the comics, I always hear your voice and the rest of the actors as the characters that I'm reading. I just had a question as someone coming from theater. I always look back at my performances or remember how I performed them, and I'm always like, maybe I could have done this better, I could have done that better. Do you ever have that thought with your work in voice acting? You ever think, I could have done this better?
No, not me.
Me either. No.
There are times, I think, when if you hear something that you recorded 3 months ago, or whatever, it finally gets on the air, and you had forgotten it till you just hear it on the air, and you go, I wish I had done that just a little differently, or not as strong. Maybe I should have softened it up a little bit, but you drive yourself crazy if you do that.
And it happens in singing all the time. If you have a little glitch or something, and when you're recording, you can just go back and you can punch in.
Yeah.
But if you're doing live stuff, you can't punch in. But it happens in music a lot. We're like, shit, I could have done a better job of that. Should have done that there.
I've done that. I do musical theater too. I've done that as well, where I'm like, that could have been better. But the next performance.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like even in theater, actors will always talk about the fact that performance, no matter what happens, it's gone.
Yep.
It's gone. It's never to be captured again. And so you can again go back and tweak those things, but those live performances are what is so memorable, I think, too, is because it's something that can never be captured again. Did you folks get to ad lib? Did you get to improv at all? Because I know this was back at a time when everybody was in the studio, right? You had all the other actors there, most of them maybe, the main cast. Did you ever get to improvise anything that you can think of offhand, or was it pretty much just get those lines in?
With shows I did, Thundercats and Silverhawks and Tiger Sharks and all those, it was, you read it the way it's written.
Okay.
I mean, there were moments, it was always clear that if you guys have an idea, something that really think is better, then let us know. But whenever we would, they'd say, we'll try that one. Try it that way. And then it comes out and it's the old one. It's the one that they like better. But no, we was pretty much stick with the script.
Yeah, I would just think with Rob Paulson and things I would just think these guys were just like riffing all the time.
Well, if you really want to hear what it sounds like in the recording studio, the part that didn't get on the air, called outtakes, and you can hear. Anybody here ever heard the outtakes of Thundercats and Silverhawks? Look them up.
Very cool. We have one last question I think we'll get to, and then,
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katie. I'm from Westchester, New York. I had a question about voice acting in general. Do you find that it's easier to go into a role blind without doing research, or have you ever had to audition for something that you've heard of and you've been worried about using previous references into your role? Is it easier to go in blind, or?
That's a good question.
I couldn't do anything without research. I mean, without looking into the voice, whatever. Yeah. That happens, everything you audition for commercials and everything, or little roles in little upcoming series, new characters and stuff. And because they give you a reference, check this out, check out this guy, this particular announcer, check out his voice, and you'll do 3 announcers, and they're not even remotely close. You just want to phone them and say, why don't you get your shit together? I need some direction here. And because these days, you do it from your home. You used to go in and, someone would actually be there directing you, saying, well, try it this way because this is what we want. Well, there's no one there to do that for you anymore. So they tell you to do 2 or 3 takes and send it in to us. Well, you're just flying blind.
Yeah. And
so when you listen to the references, like I say, and that really sort of helps, but doesn't, because I tend to immediately impersonate those people.
Yeah.
And I'm very good at impersonations. And I said, well, so why didn't I get it? Well, and when you hear it on TV, this is great. Or you hear it on TV or radio, the commercial you auditioned for, it said, that sounds nothing like they told me it was supposed to sound like. Yeah. Nothing. And it's true. It happens a lot. Yeah. So I just seek them down and I shoot them all. And they're no longer in the advertising business anymore.
There's a dark side in there, so thank you for the question. So, and thank all of you. This is called the Heroes of Voice Acting. You are our heroes. I mean, we've seen these. It is. Somebody referenced it earlier. You're the voices we hear when we're looking at these things. It's so identifiable. So we thank you for that. Where are you at on social media? How can we keep up with everybody? You on social media?
Yeah.
I know Cal you're on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And where else? Where is everybody?
Facebook, Twitter,
Facebook.
Okay. What? Facebook,
Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram, Facebook.
So we'll follow you everywhere. Sure. Whatever projects are coming down the pike, we're gonna. And then at your tables, make sure you go down and meet them at the tables and get all kinds of cool things autographed. Give it up for the heroes of voice acting. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You guys are great. Thank you so much.
And
All right,
thank you for
thank you
being
so
in our
much, folks.
lives. You give us the ability to do this and to meet you, and you make our lives very enriched. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And how about a hand for probably the best panel moderator that I've ever
very
come
kind.
across.
You're very
I'm
kind.
serious.
Hi, this is Billy West from Show Business. You're watching Fandom Spotlight. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that. Plus, have fun and follow your fandom. Or like they say on YouTube, hey guys, look, this is my new microphone. I paid $9,000 for it. Wish me luck. Like and subscribe. Smash that button.